Warning, this video contains minor spoilers.
Hi.
Well, you guys asked for it. Here we go. Hey, you degenerate. You know that you're worthless, right? Why are you playing arrogance all the time? Ew, otaku freak. And a neat shut-in at that. Disgusting. You should go outside and touch some grass. Or better yet, get laid. Pathetic. If you were God and your delusions could become reality, what delusions would you wish for? A sensual world? A despotic society? Destructive sanctions? Or... Dude, at this moment, I just want to pass my effing bachelor's. This visual novel follows us guys, as otakus and weeps of the world, but way more extreme. The protagonist, Nishijo Takumi, is a video game and otaku fanatic who lives in a shipping container located on the rooftop of a building, and he occasionally attends his lessons in high school called Suimi Academy. In his neighborhood, Shibuya, Takumi is then sucked into a nightmarish situation as a mysterious succession of serial killings called New Gen begins. As a result of that, the protagonist needs to find a weapon called a D-sword, something that defies the laws of nature, capable of turning delusions into reality in order to escape his suffering. The antisocial and delusional otaku shut-in, the lively and outgoing Imoto, the goddamn twin tails, the serious yet cool tsundere, the kudere, chunibyo, Dempa girl, the whatever this waifu has all the edginess. My beloved glasses fetish senpai, and the friendly and cheerful soulmate material. The MC is pathetic. I swear to God, he is so insufferable during most of his screen time. Takumi is an antisocial, reserved, very timid person, and he stutters a lot when speaking.
でも、視界に映すだけじゃ、それって幻でしかないよ。
Yes, the MC is voiced by Yoshino Hiroyuki, and wow, his voice acting is superb. Really puts the suffer in insufferable. This is why you should not, in fact, never have that feature that mutes the voices. Alright, back to the protagonist. Takumi is a misanthrope. Pretty much that 2D is way better than 3D kind of guy. If possible, he does not wish to come out of his shell that is his shipping container. In there, he feels the safest and most comfortable, where he can just enjoy his delusions of his waifu, Sarah, and his MMORPG, Empire Sweeper Online. The MC has some kind of a god complex in this game because he's the top player in it, spending a lot of hours on the game and neglecting real life. For in reality, he is a hetare, but in a fictional world, he's a prodigy. Honestly, I can relate to him to a certain extent because with me being an introvert that likes to stay inside and not knowing how to talk to people. Plus, I have figurines of my own, so I can understand his nature. But where I would draw the line is when he treated his own sister like a nuisance. In a world where you don't need real physics, you will still have family.
You don't turn your back on family.
Speaking of the sister, Nishijo Nanami. She's pretty much what I would expect from a younger sister. Someone who's annoying but not really in a bad way. To the MC, she is the source of irritation, but that doesn't justify the treatment towards her. Nanami seems normal enough as a character that's blood related to the MC. She confronts her brother about his unhealthy lifestyle because in the end, she cares about him. There were some hints of the bro-con coming out at certain parts of the VN, but it's nothing major, so go find your real incest route somewhere else. By the way, her pouting face is just so adorable. I also want to give a shout out to her voice acting, especially in these kind of scenes. One other outstandingly voiced character is the blonde twin tail, Orihara Kozue, or rather how she would preferably be called as... Yeah, the cutesy character. Which is to be expected, and if you notice, how she communicated was actually through telepathy. Now that is not a major spoiler, okay? It's what even VNDB states in the description, so I'm within my legal grounds here.
Proceed.
Anyway, telepathy is Kozue's Goddamn, whatever. It's one of her D-sort's abilities. From the outside, she may appear as someone who's quiet and shy, but that's just because she prefers to talk telepathically. Due to that, her voice doesn't actually annoy me. I think that it's a nice way to have that cutesy kind of character communicating through our minds because she doesn't act like it physically, which is the main source of the irritation. In this case, she is actually adorable, not annoying. Oh, and Kozubi doesn't just talk with anyone due to the limitations of her D-sort, if I recall correctly, so she only talks with those that have the power. An example is her friend, Aoi Sena, who also has a D-sort. Besides that, she's a tsundere, but very low level. Her tsundere-ness comes out very rarely, but I gotta say, when it does come out, it's not irritating at all. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Very wholesome and cute. Kinda reminds me a bit of this character.
やめろやめろさすがに眼球はまずいやましいところは何もない親しげになんて全く思っていない僕は戦場があら一筋だ
Most of the time, Senna is a very serious individual and can be intimidating because she is searching for someone that is the target of her revenge. Despite being serious, she does have her light-hearted moments, mainly shown when she eats popsicles, particularly from a brand called Crunchy-kun, a favorite of hers. And before we get to the next character, I got a question for you guys. Are those small? I'm not too sure, maybe due to my biases towards her. But do they look small to you? Because the MC said it and it's even in VMDB, and I'm honestly shocked when the size was mentioned. Let me know in the comment section down below. Alright, next girl. Kishimoto Ayase, also known as FES or FES. Persona 3 FES. Can't wait for the remake. So yeah, Fess is her stage name, as she is a songstress in an indie rock band called The Phantasm. Beautiful voice, by the way. Now, she is a songstress, but in everyday life, she's a kudere, stoic most of the time. I says also that Chunibyo / Denpa melodramatic kind of character, the most eccentric, and of course, she has a D-sort of her own. She is a heavy believer in the supernatural stuff that is basically the science behind the D-sorts, and her ability is believed to be precognition powers, since her lyrics in her songs are suspiciously related to the new gen cases. Therefore, she was designated as a potential suspect in the eyes of both the MC and the police. Another character who is interested in the homicides is a girl named Kusunoki Yua. Now, for major spoiler reasons, I'll leave it at that. But what I would say is that she satisfies my glasses fetish. And she's a senpai. 2 birds with 1 stone, baby. She is a fellow otaku just like the MC, and upon discovering that side of her, the protagonist then felt relieved because initially he was creeped out by her, believing that she was some sort of a stalker or even worse, someone who could be the culprit behind the new gen cases. Thankfully, Yua is quite opposite, a kind and friendly girl, very properly mannered, a great wife candidate with very appealing waifu materials. However, the true waifu would be the last girl amongst the main characters here, Sakihata Rimi. My favorite part of her? God, I love those salutes of hers. Again, for major spoiler reasons, I can't say much, but what I can say is that she is believed to be Takumi's friend, one who has shared a friendship with him for a long while now. The thing is though, the MC doesn't have any memories of her, and due to the situation when they met officially for the first time, he doesn't trust her. So the plot thickens. And there'll be lots of thickening and twisting happening throughout the story, I can assure you that. With the major support of the side characters, of course. The womanizing classmate, the kind and caring doctor, as he should be, the wise and relaxed detective, another detective who is easygoing and a cinephile, the nurse character who has an option to wear glasses or not. You can choose, but you will obviously decide on this one, right? Right? The very engaging online friend, the smart and blunt investigator, and finally, our 2D waifu. Other nameless characters are there, a part of which are associated with the term DQN according to the protagonist, which basically describes people that are lacking social common sense, such as delinquents, gangsters, and the like. You can read about them more actually, because of what the game gives you. Into the next section. Now, the main menu page does not look like this when you first play it. You will get this background only after completing the game. The atmosphere is more like the start screen here, which will lead you into the game's opening animation if you idle in it for too long. I don't know if I can change the background to the original. I mean, could it even be changed to the OG? God damn it, Mages, Nitro Plus. Why didn't you do it like the Fault Milestone series? By the way, the prelude is also only accessible after completing all the endings. In the continue button, you will get a shortcuts feature that allows you to start from the beginning of any chapter. But this is only accessible after completing the common route's first ending. The config button gives you basic settings, text settings, sound settings. Bruh. Screw you, developers. And the key config page. Don't know why there are buttons for controllers when I took this screenshot in the PC, but okay. Extra button leads you to this page, which has a feature that keeps track of your progress here in this box. Something I truly appreciate, and I wish more VN developers incorporate this into their games. CG library gives you, of course, the CGs, sound library for the music, movie library for the animations and the partially animated CGs, and finally the tips list where you can read definitions of certain words which you might not know of that are used throughout the story, filled with both fictional and non-fictional facts. Storytelling will mostly be in an ADV format, but there are some NVL moments. As for the English translation by Committee of Zero, to my memory, I did not find any spelling or grammatical errors, but I will be discussing on it a bit further in the later part of the video. Besides that, there is also one particular spot where you can sort of experience something like a VR moment, which is at Takumi's desk in his shipping container here. The characters themselves have mouth animations that sync well to the lines spoken by the voice actors, and that is something I will also appreciate. But of all the things to be grateful for, the most eye-catching one is the free costume DLC. What it gives you is the option to change the female character's outfits into their lingerie here in the basic settings. Now, I'm not saying that you should not use it. As always, the choice is yours to make, but it's free, come on. Lastly, the main concept of this VN. The delusions. At several points in the story, you'll get prompted with this animation where you can choose 3 options. The green on the left is a positive delusion, while on the other hand, the red on the right is a negative one. If you do not choose any, by the time the window closes, you proceed with a neutral choice, one that is not a delusion if I recall correctly. Each choice will give you different scenarios for those scenes. You also get these yes or no prompts, mainly to get into the waifu route. But there is also a part to decide how a particular character dresses, and one other part where you can get into the bad ending if you choose enough wrong answers. As for getting into the waifu routes, it heavily affected my playtime, which is 34 hours to complete the damn thing, which is a relatively short playtime to finish when compared to VNDB's average record of 45 hours. If you take the in-game playtime into account, then yeah, it's around 20 minutes shorter. What I want to say though is that 4 or 5 hours should be taken away from either of them, because 1, I spent the first 3 hours playing without the Committee of Zero patch, and 2, around 1 or 2 hours were AFK sessions, because I mainly played the VN using my Steam Deck. And when I go do other stuff, I just let it AFK, or when I accidentally slept. Also, I've come across others that took way longer time to read the whole thing. Regardless, it was considerably torturous at some points due to a ridiculous story structure. Now, I'm not talking about Freitag's Pyramid. In fact, the VN follows it quite well. But what I want to touch on is the stupid placement of the choices in the game. Choices that lead you into the waifu route. Okay, let me explain. In the common route, there are 10 chapters, and no matter which delusions you choose, you will automatically get into the first ending, called Ending A, or Silent Sky. Only after finishing this ending will you get the choice to get into Ending B, called Crying Sky, which is the alternate ending for the common route. Or the routes to each of the main character girls, prompting these yes or no questions if you choose the right delusions at the right time. The problem with that is, those right moments occur in the beginning of the f***ing story. And where do the routes branch off? You guessed it. At the end! Oh my god! Why the F? This is basically my experience. This is f***ing ridiculous. Whoever decided those placements of the crucial delusions needs to get fired. Okay, not really because of what I will say in my opinion section, but nonetheless, it was goddamn painful to branch off into the desired routes here. After finishing all of the routes, ending A, B, and the waifu routes, will you get access to the true ending called Blue Sky. Then after that, you get the prelude. One whole package finally comes together. First of all, I want to mention that if you came across Chaos Head Noah through these particular cover photos, then I would suggest for you to lower down your expectations. It is most of the time not an action genre. I got clickbaited into this VN and you shouldn't be. But I guess you should get clickbaited from my thumbnails. They're eye-catching, right? Now, what this plot is based on are mystery and thriller, mostly through the eyes of the protagonist, and in certain moments, through other characters' perspective, and it does a great job at it. I get chills surprisingly often when reading throughout the story, and there will be some really disturbing moments. In terms of the plot, it was actually intriguing and a breath of fresh air since we have an unusual protagonist, and with the thickening and twisting here and there, they were enjoyable to experience. Even indirect foreshadowing occurs here, where you're certain that something is not true because it's obvious, but then those plot twists happen and you'll stand corrected. Character interactions are understandable despite being undesirable in certain parts, especially between the MC and his younger sister. Pacing overall feels good to me, but some people might find it unbearable in the first 6 chapters, as heavily influenced by the protagonist. This is where character development comes in, and they vary according to the routes. Let's get into the common route first, and it's very good. Most of it were enjoyable to read. The mystery, the thriller, the plot twist, the science stuff that I'm too stupid to understand. Just kidding, the explanations are solid and they make sense. Takumi's character development also shines the brightest in this route, but some of the other characters felt underdeveloped. Undermined even. However, they're compensated by their individual routes, though some of them are not enough. Let's take Nanami's route for example. Here, you can kiss Takumi's character development goodbye, because it's pretty much stagnant. Sure, he treats Nanami better, but it doesn't contribute to the plot, and the route just diverts away from the story without making sense. The core of the plot is Takumi, and the story just progresses without his being. That's questionable. Kozue's route is a bit better. For her, not for him. It dives deep into her psyche and makes you feel sympathetic for her, though the ending felt like wasted potential and just comes off randomly. Plus, I do not like how they treated Best Girl in this route. They did her dirty. Yua's route is where it starts to get good enough. The plot twist was emotional, it hit her in the feels, I can assure you that, and Takumi matters a bit more here. However, after this point as shown on screen, the story also felt like wasted potential. Ayase's route is also enjoyable, though a bit of a mixed bag, because hers is the one that has the most fan service, but also the most plot holes. Some certain plot devices just appeared for the sake of it without any reason or explanation, and therefore, her route feels lackluster. Second to last, Senna's route. Now, her route is one of the only solid ones amongst the waifu routes. It's got Takumi's impact on the story, very nice character interactions, suitable background flashbacks, and last but not least, unexpected yet very much welcome fan service. Not as direct as Ayase's, but it's there. This route also has a lot more characters involved when compared to the other routes. Finally, we're at the last waifu, Rimi. It pretty much is similar in terms of the aspects that I've mentioned in Senna's route, but -1. That is Takumi's impact. To be fair, it's not an impact directly on the story, but rather an impact on Rimi, which then affects the story. Also, Rimi's background is way more bone-chilling than the rest. As for the true end, as expected, it's the best and most fitting ending overall, but most of the execution were similar to ending A, though more excitement did occur in the true end, and you will feel that your efforts to go through the other routes were rewarded. But the journey to get there did cause quite a struggle, and how I would recommend reading the VN is coming up next. Before that, I want to refer to Committee of Zero's suggestion, which is this. I will agree on this part, but for these four, I can't really say. They are more or less similarly decent routes. So for these particular routes, just decide based on your interest in the involved girls. In my case, with my saving the best girl for last mindset, I played according to the increasing breast size. Regardless, I will suggest to save Rimi's route for last and Senna's before hers. Both of their routes are honestly the best ones amongst the 6 girls. So ending A, ending B, then the 4 girls, then Senna, Rimi, and finally the true ending. This is just my opinion, and there are more of it coming next. Let's get the bad stuff out of the way, and the first thing I want to talk about is that I do not like the number of save slots that this VN offers. Seriously, a VN that's considered long here only gets 48 save slots. Why? There are so many moments in the game that are memorable, and it would be nice to save those moments. Mages / Nitro Plus, just saying. Second, I wish that the UI design of the delusion prompts was a bit more obvious. Like in my experience, when reading through the first delusion, I did not even know that I could choose at that point, and I only knew when I first accidentally pressed this R2 button during one delusion prompt. It was at that point when I discovered, oh, these prompts actually do stuff. The next bad thing is, as mentioned, the goddamn placements of the delusions to determine which routes you want to get into. To add insult to injury, there are a lot of other delusion prompts that occur between the deciding delusion and the point where the story branches off into the route itself. Even the skip feature stops at the delusions. You know how much my E key has suffered? The skip button? Let it rest, for crying out loud. Plus, most of the routes themselves were not really satisfying, so it feels like you struggled in vain or something. That being said, I do think that the intermissions, as in extra scenes in the common route featuring the chosen girl, are worth reading. They do answer certain plot holes that you may be wondering, and they add much needed context, especially in Rimi's route. Now, what I like next is going to be controversial, especially for those horny bonkers. I played this VN with the costume DLC. I don't care if you hate the fact that I had this option on all the time, because I will read however I enjoy it. And if I enjoy whatever degenerate things the game offers, despite being degenerateless, then I will gladly accept it. So screw you.
If that's not good enough, then screw you.
What I want to mention is that despite having only lingerie clothes on, it doesn't take away the seriousness, at least not to the point that you will notice. Sure, there were some moments I actually grinned. For example, a scene where a character was zoomed into her chest area and the text was mentioning about the school insignia on her uniform. But with the lingerie only option on, there was no uniform, so what was the text talking about? Regardless, the seriousness is still there. And I don't even get distracted by the DLC. Hell, I would pay attention to Senna's sword more than her body. So that's just how engaging the writing and atmosphere is, actually. I also want to give a shout out to the voice acting. They're all really superb. Felt as if they are actually their character. Especially Takumi's voice actor. He's stuttering, and the way he talks really made me feel Takumi's cowardice. Thank you, Yoshinori-san. You really gave life to an insufferable character. Dude actually carried the whole VN. Lastly, this next stuff that I want to talk about is not likable at all, but I do appreciate its exposure. That is the horrors of human experimentation. Reading certain moments in this VN genuinely made me feel disgusted and shocked by how cruel humans can be. What's worse is that they actually believe that what they're doing is for the greater good. One such torture involved itching. And do not underestimate how freaking irritating an itch could be, especially when you can't scratch it.
Nothing is worse than having an itch you can never scratch.
I agree.
And they don't show much of the gore. It's mainly in writing, but that doesn't make it better. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Can't imagine how terrible it is. What is shown though could also be considered controversial as well. That is the translation, which I personally find to be arguably better than the official one. There are some parts I would question though, like for example, there is one new gen case called man-child, whereas the official translation named it pregnant man. Honestly speaking, I find that the latter would fit a bit better because I thought that man-child meant a completely different thing. Like in this case,
But you, man-child that you are, released into the wild. Don't know what you're talking about.
also, a recurring favorite line that is, whose eyes are those eyes? In the official translation, it is whose eyes are those? And I think that the former seems a bit redundant in the English sense. That being said, the patch translation is translating word for word here because the Japanese line is sonome dare no me. Sonome dare no me. I just like the song. Me in Japanese means eyes and it's mentioned twice. So this English translation is just following the Japanese. Still, you can decide for yourself which version is better. I'm not a translator nor am I an English teacher. Heck, I'm not even English. What I wish from the patch though is something like this. I actually prefer the official CG than the fan CG here. Having the original Japanese text with translations at the side is a better style in my opinion. What the Committee of Zero patch does give you better though is that you get decensored stuff. I can attest to that since I spent 3 hours reading the official Steam version before installing the patch. And I gotta say, Sarah became way more attractive after the update. Phew! Mostly laid bare. And it is a shame that we do not have sex scenes in this. Okay, before you bash me, I know that H scenes are unnecessary in this case. But you know me, if we can't have the fun stuff, instead we'll have it is a bit difficult to determine who's best girl. That being said, seeing how the story went, it was eventually expected. Drum roll! It's the nurse.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
Just kidding, okay? My objective opinion is that Rimi is best girl. See? Told you it was expected. It is a bit unfair though, considering how much screen time she has when compared to the other girls, and how the story puts her as the main girl. That being said, she did pull her weight. She also carried the story. Seeing how Rimi treated the MC most of the time earned her the title. Her role in the plot, her personality, her willingness to sacrifice, her lingerie. But of course, my subjective opinion is definitely Senna. The surprising fan service that you get from her and her unexpected cute faces are just too good to pass up. Senna's like arguably the most badass of them all. Like, come on man, look at that pose. And her revenge story is something that I can sympathize with. Her serious attitude, softened by the fact that she likes those popsicles for a simple reason, is just so attracting to me. Plus, she even has the best lingerie. I mean sword. Yeah, no kidding. She has the best looking sword in my opinion. And that is that. Enough simping, let's be done with it. To conclude, Chaos Head Noah is good, but also has more problems than what I would like it to have. A story that has an interesting concept and good enough of an execution, but inconsistent developments. The horror slash thriller elements were done really well, heavily supported by a protagonist who is a breath of fresh air. Sure, he may be undesirable and pathetic, but he is different, and seeing him grow in the correct routes is something to be satisfied with. If anything else, the VN has amazing voice acting from all sides. With that, the Degen score is an 8. And that's all from me. Hope you guys can like and subscribe if the content is degenerate enough. Later, gents.